How we doing, everybody? And welcome to episode 4 of the Paul Talk podcast. I'm delighted to be joined by Stuart Irons. Stuart, how are you getting on today, mate?
All good, my man. Thanks for inviting us on your show.
Not a problem. Before we get into the conversation, I'm just going to shout out to our sponsor, Starna Apparel. Starna is an independent fashion brand from Scotland, creating high quality and stylish attire for on and off the terraces, inspired by terrace culture, lifestyle and music, and all of the clothing is designed using quality materials and workmanship to combine the very best style and fit. All of this means you get premium quality fashion at affordable prices while enjoying simple and secure service. You can check them out at www.starnetapparel.co.uk. Now that's out the way.
Happy days.
So, Stuart, people that don't know who you are, can you tell us a wee bit about yourself?
Yep, I can. So, obviously, I'm Stuart Irons. I'm a personal trainer at the moment. I run a boot camp called Body Fit Camp based in the South Side. I've done that for the last 5 years. Just coach people to be fitter, stronger and happier versions of themselves, mate. And at the moment, I'm currently doing a podcast as well. I'll get a wee dig here, the Live and Kicking podcast, and I'm trying to venture down that route as well too, mate.
I've obviously watched your episodes so far and I found you on TikTok. You're very good on TikTok. We were talking about before we came in. It's a lot of mental health stuff that you're focused on. What drives you to do all your different kind of your TikToks, your Instagram, your podcast? What is it that drives you for that?
So I think the biggest one for me is getting my story out to help people over the years, mate, because I struggled massively with mental health through addiction, through a gambling addiction, which we can touch on. And I feel that social media is a great way to get your story out there, get your message out there, and TikTok especially, you get a bigger range of people, you get a bigger reach of people. So I've went massive on TikTok over the last few months, hence why you found me. And I use that as a big tool to reach people, mate, and help them with my message through obviously mental health.
We've spoken as well, we've been texting and stuff, and we're talking about it just there before we started again. You were at Hamilton YTS when you were younger, and it's very similar background to myself where I was at Clyde, so we weren't far away from each other. What was life like for you growing up, and I imagine being a big football man?
So I had a great upbringing, mate. As you can imagine, a young guy, grew up in Hamilton. It was actually, for them to hear it, it was, I couldn't say anything bad about it. It was running about the streets on my bike, playing football all day, up the woods, on the on the sweat, as you can imagine, mate. Just honestly brilliant. I had a great childhood, playing football every single day, no matter where it was, streets, parks. In Hamilton, we used to get up with Jock Steen, me and all my mates constantly. So my childhood was brilliant, mate. So it was. I don't have a bad thing to say about it, nor a day. It was great. It gave me the opportunity to go and play football every day and play boys club football, which was massive back in the day. Obviously now it's went more pro youth, more development and stuff like that. Played school football as well. That's all I wanted to do, mate, is be a football player since I was growing up.
How did you find being in at Hamilton? I've spoken about this on my other podcast where every boy who likes football grows up wants to be a football player. I was no different. Then I had my year in and I found it mentally very difficult playing or training every day. People will think, oh, well, you're getting paid today. So you're living year and you're very fortunate to be in that position with your mates and you're getting fit and you're healthy and you're supposed to be happy. On the mental health side for me, I really struggled being full-time. We were at Clyde, there was only like 6 or 7 of us and we trained with the first team every day. So I probably wasn't ready for it mentally. Physically it was fine, but I really struggled with the mental side of it. Like if you had a bad couple of days at training, I was in my head too much and I just really struggled and I would lash out at people and stuff like that. How did you find being in full-time?
Do you know, I started, so how it worked for me, for Boys Club, mate, I signed for Rafe Rovers through Claude and Elka. So Nicholas and Elka was his brother, I don't know if you remember. And he came in and brought a lot of French foreign boys in, and we were white. I think there was like 6 or 7 years YTSs, stayed in a 2 or 3 bedroom flat, and they kicked us out of there, and they were asking us to I lived in Hamilton at the time. They were asking us to travel in to Kirkcaldy every day for Hamilton. So I scrapped that and ended up getting in touch with somebody for Hamilton to finish the rest of my YTS, which was a brilliant move because it was close to home. But when I was in amongst it, doing it, I absolutely loved it, mate. I loved as you know yourself, when you're in amongst the boys doing a YTS, the banter every day. But then comes the pressure. Actually, right, I need to play my football here because I want to be a football player. And as you know yourself, being a young man, that's all you dream of. Whatever level it is, because you never think, oh, I'm only playing with Hamilton. You think, I'm playing with Hamilton, I'll get the opportunity. I'm a Rangers fan, and you go, right, I might play with Rangers or I might play with Celtic. So it got to that point where you're like, right, I need to screw the heat here and try and make it and stick in every single day. But then came the pressure of when you did get the opportunity to go and play with the first team or whatever, you had to step up and play. So in amongst it, I felt confident myself, mate, because I get a few opportunities, but it just takes one slight wee thing to go against you, and then that'll knock your confidence, especially if you don't have this. I don't know about you, mate, but I didn't really have I'd say the support network through like family supporting me to come and drive me on when the times were hard, etc. But generally, I think the mental health side with the young guys, if it was the pressure side to go and make it, because then if you don't make it, you don't know where you can go after that, and that's what I found quite sharpish when I get released for Hamilton.
So what happened after you did that? I know you went and played juniors for a few years, but what did you do for work?
Oh, so when I get released for Hamilton, mate, that was basically as a big, as you know yourself, it was a massive kick in the teeth. I think the manager at the time was Billy Reid. So it's effectively somebody saying you're no good enough. And I took that as gospel, mate, and it really hit me hard. And in that period of time, I was gambling. So I picked up a gambling, I wouldn't say a gambling addiction, mate, but I started gambling when I was 14. And it was just harmless stuff, like putting a coupon on with my mates, his brothers, my stepdad as well, putting coupons on, going down to the Willie Hills with a pound standing outside it, put your coupon on, and then it started escalating to when I did start getting money, my £55 a week YTS, which was gone rapidly. I would be going out to the bookies, playing the roulette machines, betting on horses, pretty much spending all my money on gambling, mate. And that's what happened when I get released for Hamilton. I ended up just submerging myself into basically gambling. So I did every single penny I had. And job-wise, I was working in a sandwich bar called O'Brien's with my mate, washing dishes, making sandwiches. So you could see how we'd gone for basically dreams and aspirations to be a football player, mate, to then fucking working in a sandwich bar. So you can see how that then affects your mental health, or it affected my mental health, because I was like, a month ago, I was on a path to be a professional. I played a couple of games with the Hamilton first team. Will come on as a sub. Now I'm working in a sandwich bar, making sandwiches. So that period, mate, I just went downhill because I don't know, mate. I just thought, right, I'm not going to make it as a football player. I don't know what direction. There was nobody there. There was no aftercare. They listen, go down this route. It was just fend for yourself. Fell into the juniors with Cambus Lang, which was good. It's a good learning experience, the juniors playing with men, but effectively you need to get a job and go. You're not a professional. So I just submerged myself in gambling and drinking and a lot of crap, mate. Do you know what I mean? Early that year, I would say, which was never great for MD's mental health.
I started this talking about the football because I know exactly what it is. I was, like I said, I was full-time with Clyde. My brother was full-time with St Mirren. So I have a very good grasp of what it's like. I had a slightly different thing for you where when I get released, a part of me was like, good. I mean, I wanted to be a football player, but I was like, good. Because that was too much for me. People look and say, well, you were at Hamilton, so you probably weren't going to make it that high anyway. That's what people would say, but that's not how you felt. You're talking about, you're saying, maybe I could go play with Rangers one day. I don't think people realise what the magnitude is of that, being told you're not good enough, in a sense, being told you're not good enough, having to leave. And then you talk about the gambling. That environment in football is just rife with gambling. I mean, but you would bet on two flies walking across a board. Do you know what I mean? That's what my experience of football was like. How heavily did you get into gambling? Because you said you kind of started to submerge yourself in it. What impact did that have in your life?
So when I get released, mate, I just took over because when we were doing our YTS at Hamilton, we would get in the mornings, do a bit of your training. Afternoons, we used to get up to the Sainsbury's, get in there, get our lunches. We actually got in trouble for that one day because we were getting in and you know how you get the food stall and you put all the fucking salads in and all that. We were filling them up and putting putting price tags on them, and they went back to the Hamilton. We get into trouble for it. Then we would go to a few years. We'd go to the bookies and play the roulette and play the horses and stuff, and it just became part of everyday life, mate. That everybody was doing it. And you, as you know, it can quickly get a grab of you. And when I get released, I was just like, right, I'm going to the bookies. And it was escapism for me. And it was, when I was getting in there, I was like, do you know what? I know I shouldn't be doing this, but it was just pulling me in. It was just gripping me every time. And I ended up just getting really downhill with me for 2 or 3 years between 19, I think it was 19, and 21, 22, when I thought, right, I need to do something here. And my full escapism was to go and join the army or join the military to get away from all the destruction I'd caused myself through gambling, drink, drugs early 3 years when I get released. And it was probably the best decision I made.
If you don't have to go into too much detail if you don't want to, but what kind of destruction did you cause in your life at that period? Because you're still a very young man at that time.
So at that time, mate, I was sleeping on my mate's sofa bed in his house. I'd fell out with my mother. I wasn't speaking to some of my family just through my gambling and the things I was doing. And it was just a dark period, mate, at that point. It was, it was like, I didn't know what to do, mate. I was going through some sort of internal struggle because I was trying to cope with the fact that my football career, or I say my football career, but the dream of being a footballer had come crashing down. And I think that still affected me all through my life, mate, feeling no good enough because I wasn't a football player, because you're always trying to aim. You can see obviously how football players are in society. It's like, that's what I want to be, that's what I want to aspire to be when I was younger. And when you don't get that, you have to go, right, now I'm going to settle for a job doing just an everyday job, which there's nothing wrong with that. But when you've got aspirations to be a football player, mate, it was just hard to cope with. And I just felt no good enough. And I thought, do you know what? Fuck this, I'm just going to get straight into the gambling, the drink, and forget about it all.
It is hard. And again, it's people don't realise the impact that can have on young men because you don't have the support system. I know you've got certain clubs now, the bigger clubs are starting to do stuff where it's like they're making sure they're preparing boys for when they leave. Because you had the boy from Man City, do you remember maybe a year or two ago, the boy that killed himself?
Yeah, the young boy, yeah.
And I think it is hard, that stuff. You've joined the Marines that you've went to. What's your life like at this point that you've went to the Marines?
So at this point, as I was saying, I was at a real rock bottom, mate. I was sleeping on my mate's sofa bed, and he was training with the Marines down at RMR Ibrox, and he was like, right, let's come and do some training with me on a Wednesday night. And I was like, can't be bothered. But he's like, it'll get you out the house, it'll get you moving. And I was like, right, I'll get down with you. So I went down for one session with him just to train. I was like, this is actually decent. All the boys were sound in that. So when I'm back up the road, I was like, right, I'll go to the careers centre. But firstly, I went to the army. He started with the army, which is quite a funny, ironic, mate, quite a funny story. So when I went to the army, I went through all the tests and stuff like that, and they send away for your medical records. In this period of time, when I was gambling, I went to the doctors for my gambling to say, I'm fucking struggling here with my gambling, depression and whatever. So he's noted all this down in my medical records, mate, the doctor. And when I went to join the army, they send away for your medical records. So I get a letter from the army saying, basically, your doctor's medical records are saying about your gambling addiction, your depression, we're going to defer you for 12 months. I was like, fucking hell, man, that was my escape for all the destruction, a way to start something. So I was like, right, I've been to train with the Marines, I'll go and try the Marines, but I knew the Marines were harder to get into, so that's why I went to the army first. So lo and behold, when I went to the Marines, mate, I went to the Navy Careers Centre, and the Marines do their own medical, so you get into their own doctor, they don't send away. And when I went in to do that medical with that doctor, I just lied all the way through it. He's like, you're fine. I was like, aye, I'm brilliant, I'm looking to go. Just lied to every question, mate. And then I passed the Marines medical, and that was it. I was ready to go and be a Marine.
See, when you went to the army, that must have been quite a a knock for you because you've said that's where you were hoping to escape for all the shit you've been through before. I suppose you can understand why they would defer you for a year, but it's also in a sense it's kind of washing their hands of you where they've went, this boys get too much baggage. And again, if you're potentially going to be going to war, you can understand why they would do that. But what kind of impact did that have on you when you initially found out that that was going to be deferred? Did you think, oh, fuck, I can't, there's no anything I'm going to be able to do here. This was going to be my way out.
That's exactly what I thought, mate. I was absolutely gutted, and I was like, right, do you know what? I'll try the Marines. And I was at that period, mate. I just needed to get away from Glasgow, away from all the destruction. I had to go and do something different just to completely wipe the slate clean. And when the army knocks you back, man, you're like, fuck, everybody gets into that. Everybody gets into the army. So, and what you're saying it is, but I just think it's more so that obviously when they take you on board, you need to be mentally there, mate, when you got to join the army, because you're obviously got to get sent to war or get trained up to be a soldier and whatever, and you need to be in the right mindset. So I think it was the right decision then, but it was then maybe going, right, what support network can this boy get to get him to a level where he can join the army?
I think that's, again, touching on that, the support network. Funds obviously dictate all that stuff where, like, you look at Hamilton, don't have the finances to be able to make sure that all the boys are supported once they leave. The army don't have the resources or the time to make sure that somebody's supported once they get knocked back. It's just part and parcel, I suppose. How long was it before you've applied for the Marines and lied your way into the Marines? How long before that? Was there a bit of gap, or was it kind of instantly?
No, there was when I applied, there was a gap, mate, maybe about 6 to 9 months, where when they said I'd passed the medical and it was time to pass the pre-fitness test and then get down and do, it was called the PRMC, so pre-Royal Marines course. There was it was about 9 months where I just had to focus on getting physically fit. So my CV fitness was fine, mate, because I was a football player. I could run all day at that age, but it was my upper body strength. I couldn't do 2 pull-ups. And that's what I had to do. And I couldn't do about 10 press-ups, mate. So I had to, every day for 9 months, mate, I was doing press-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, and I was just continually doing that. So I passed the physical test to join the Marines. And in that time period, mate, I wasn't working. I was on the job centre, still sleeping on my mate's couch, but I had a focus then, because I knew, right, it's either all this life that I've created for myself through gambling, addiction and drinking, or I know I've got the opportunity to go and join the Marines, so just get the heat down and do these basically fitness tests.
See that 9 months that you've had doing your pull-ups, press-ups, sit-ups, which I can actually relate to that now, where I'm honking that. I literally can do 1 pull-up. I can run all day, but can do 1 pull-up. Were you still gambling through this period, or did that focus that you said, did that kind of sharpen you a wee bit and help, or was it just a continuation of what you were doing?
I was still gambling, so I was signing on at the job centre, and it was still in that routine. I was still doing my fitness and that. I was in the mindset, mate, that I was happier without money. So it's fucking crazy that I would have to gamble it, and then I would have to reset myself and I'd do my fitness and feel good. And then 2 weeks later, when I got my money for the job centre, I would gamble it again, then reset myself, do my fit. It was a weird cycle, mate.
It's funny you saying that. Have you ever heard of the guy Brian Keane?
No.
He's an Irish guy. Like, he's really big on Instagram, and he's done all these crazy fitness challenges. He's kind of quite well known, and he's got a book. I listened to the audio book, and it was talking about get to a stage where you get so used to having no money or a certain amount of money that you manage to survive and feel more comfortable in that. And I spoke to him. I got my wife to listen to the book as well. And I found that as well. We had a stage where we were in a lot of debt, and I was surviving on, after we paid our bills, I had like, say, £150 for the month for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like nothing. But I got to the stage where I learned to survive on that so easily that, see, when I had, for talking sake, if I went to bookies and I won a couple of £100, I had to get rid of that money as soon as I possibly could to go back to my base level. And I kind of get what you're meaning with that. It's a bit, if people don't feel that way, then it's a bit strange. But I found that it was easier to survive on what I knew I could survive on. I would just cut everything back, and I would almost be happier. But then when I had the money, I'd be like, oh, I need to spend this. I need to buy something. that kind of the way it was
That
for
that
yourself?
that that, that was exactly it, mate. I was living in a good way to probably say it, mate. Is I was living in survival mode. It's like I was like, I'm more happier without money because when I did have money, I would just go and gamble it. And it was like a vicious cycle, mate. I'd feel good, right? I've got money. Then I'd go to the bookies or whatever. I'd gamble it. Everybody I come down. Then I'd reset myself and have to go again. I was like, do you know what? I got to a stage I was just happy, just no money, mate.
Because you
Because
didn't have to put yourself through
I didn't
that.
have to put myself pretty much. So that was probably the cycle for the 9 months, mate. Gambling my money, doing my fitness, gambling my money, doing my fitness. And I must say, I give a big shout out to the job centre on that, mate, because they sorted me out with like a suit. They sorted me out with all my fitness stuff, my trainers, my t-shirts, everything you could imagine, mate. If I go to the Marines, mate, they bought it for me. So
That's
they
good.
did.
I didn't realise they did
Yeah,
that.
they did that.
See, I saw a thing years ago and it was talking about what gamblers, and I've never had this where I go into a situation. I remember when I was maybe about similar age, 21, 22, and I remember I used to play roulette quite a lot. And I worked in Renfrew, but I was off on a Monday, and I was driving to the gym in Renfrew. And as I was driving by, the Wally Hills in the High Street opened. So this was like 10 o'clock in the morning. And I remember seeing the opening, and I burrowed back. There's kind of, in Renfrew High Street, it's like one way on both sides. And I've doubled back and parked outside the Wally Hills, went in, and I blew my week's wages in 15 minutes in Wally Hills. Like, just blew everything I had. Granted, I stayed with my mum and dad, so it wasn't a big issue. And I remember doing that. And something that I'd heard before and it all stuck with me was losing was a bigger high than winning. Because when you lost, you thought, you get that maybe that dopamine kick where I have to go and win this back.
Mhm.
But when you won, you were happy. It was almost a relief and you could walk away for a bit, but then you chased that loss. What did it feel like for you gambling?
It was a gambling is one of the things for me where now I know that I'm out the mist state and out the chaos state, mate. I look back, and for me, it was, as I said, it was an escapism for reality. It was escapism for feeling no good enough for being a football player, and I was using it to mask a lot of pain, a lot of internal struggle, and always think now that it was like a possession. It was like being possessed with a demonic spirit, mate. The way I look at it, because every time I was gambling, mate, I was like, "Don't do this, Stuart. You're hurting yourself. You know you're doing wrong." But then I would go and gamble anyway, mate, and put myself through that torture. It was like I wasn't in control of my thoughts. I wasn't in control of my mind. It was like my fucking spirit was possessed, but my soul was saying, "Don't." There was something deep inside me, but I'd do it anyway. So it was like a complete possession gambling, mate, and I would just do it anyway because, and I knew the consequences, and I knew it was wrong deep inside me. That feeling, if that makes sense. But the way I explain it is, it's just a vicious cycle. Everybody's addictions is the thing that's giving them that escapism for how they're feeling and a coping mechanism or what they're going through or what they're experiencing in their life. And that's what gambling was for me, mate. Right up until I was 30, till I chucked it.
So that even continued. So the
I
Marines
can
didn't fix it.
They didn't fix it, mate. They didn't fix it. They fixed it for a period of time, but the underlying issues for me, mate, was still that feeling of not feeling good enough because I wasn't a football player. And I've realised I didn't. I've only realised this over the last maybe 4 years or so. That's what my underlying issue's been because I've always thought I should have been a football player. And I've always not felt good enough for what I was doing in society. So this was just a self-destruction mode for me, an escapism for everything I was feeling about myself. Does that make sense?
It actually makes complete sense to me. It's I'm going to touch on the social media stuff a lot. I talk about how your life was in the Marines and that. But see, we'd spoke outside and I'd said like you're good with doing the TikTok videos and basically just holding your phone in your face and you're out in the woods generally if you're walking the dog or whatever. And you do that. I struggle with that. Like this, again, we spoke about it. This is easy for me. I enjoy this and I like speaking to people, but like you had said, there's always somebody else there with you. I did a video maybe 4 or 5 days ago, maybe less than that, and it was horrible. It was horrible doing the video myself, and I have this thing as well, not to make it about me, but to kind of show that I understand what you're saying. I have this thing as well where I put myself down all the time, and like it annoys my wife. My mum and dad get annoyed with it, particularly my mum. She gets quite pissed off with me because I'll say, "Oh, I'm not going to get this, or I'm not going to get that." when I look at it logically, I think almost everything I've ever done, I spoke about this in my last podcast, almost everything I've ever done, I've been pretty good at it. Like, never amazing at
Mhm.
anything, but been pretty good at pretty much everything I've ever done. But I always have that nagging thought of,
Yeah.
aye, I'm no good enough. And I can completely relate to what you're saying. And for me, it's never been the gambling. The gambling's not been the issue. But I understand when you mentioned how you knew you, it's like telling yourself, this isn't good, don't do this, don't do this. And you go, ah, fuck it, I'm going to do it
I got
anyway. And it's,
that's the
my way of looking at it is, it's like you're outside yourself, watching yourself be a
yeah.
dick, and you can't stop
You
it.
can't stop it, mate. That's how I fight. That's when I look back, mate, and I've done a lot of work on myself over the last 5, 6 years. A lot of self work. I realise it's like you're just it's going through it. It's like a possession, mate. Your spirit's possessed, and your soul's telling you, "Stop hurting yourself. Stop doing these things to yourself." But you go and do it anyway.
Why do you think that we keep, is everybody pretty much does this with something, regardless of being gambling, drink,
Mhm.
drugs, food, women and men, you know what I mean, cheating on their partners or whatever, that's some form of whatever they need. Why do you think, I know you can only answer for yourself, but why do you think that people do that all the time?
I think it is a sense of obviously it could be a combination of things, different scenarios. For myself, it was masking the pain, mate, masking obviously that feeling as I've spoke about, not being good enough and using it as a coping mechanism in society. And obviously there's different coping mechanisms you can use for better use, but the ones that are obviously in our face are like the prominent one, like drinking, drug use, all these things I've just spoke about, gambling. I think it's easily accessible now. Like say if somebody's gets alcohol addiction, you just go to the pub, you can booze, drugs is massive here. Obviously, now you see cocaine and that, people get into pubs, it's acceptable. I think maybe it's more masking insecurities and pain, mate, and traumas with the past addictions, and it's just ends up in a vicious cycle and a coping mechanism, especially when you're living in survival mode, just maybe week to week. You know yourself, look at the state of society at the moment, mate. Everybody's struggling, whether it's working 9 to 5, trying to find jobs. Everybody, the state of the world, such as you get things like the economic stuff with bills, food bills, electricity, gas. It's hard. So it's an escapism for all the bullshit in it.
I think that you get a lot of people who, I've actually got a mate in mind who's like a good life, good wife, good kids, but he does that coping thing where he's a good guy. He works all week and then at weekends just gets smashed. Well, smashed, maybe a bit unfair. He just drinks and gets drunk and then starts again on Monday and does that, and that's his life. And I think he's reasonably happy with it, but there's probably some reason that that's only what he does with his life. And I'm not what I criticise my mate because he's one of my best mates, and I mean he's a good guy. But it's like that must be part of that cycle where it's hiding in a sense, because we all hide. For me, I don't drink very much, don't gamble anymore, don't do drugs. But for me, it's like I love eating chocolate and McDonald's and that. I exercise enough to hide the sins, but that's my escapism when I just go, oh, like I'm not feeling good, I'll go and have a McDonald's. And I'm taking my children into that where it's like I take them with me all the time
Yeah.
and we'll go and get McDonald's, and that's my way of escaping. In the grand scheme of things, it's a small way of doing it. But again, it's another way of kind of maybe try to hide how you actually feel about certain things.
I think it's the culture as well we live in here, obviously in Scotland, mate, with, as you say, your mate, you're working all week, fucking knocking your pan in, whatever it may be, and then you're like, right, Friday, I can't wait just to get a beer or go down the pub with my mates or blow off some steam. Then that starts again. But these things we're doing to ourselves at the weekend, like drinking, taking drugs, whatever, is obviously a knock on effect on our mental health. And then it doesn't take till the Thursday again to recover, and then you repeat that same process.
It's something we'll go back on to when we talk about your podcast, the social media
Mhm.
stuff you do. But you are what, 21, 22,
22 when I joined the
joined the
Marines.
Marines, which something I've always been interested in because I like my fitness stuff like yourself. What's initial training like with the Marines and all that kind of thing?
So it's the training's hard, mate. I'll tell you. So it was probably, I was going down on the train, mate, with my fucking suit for the job centre, like that, ready. I was buzzing because I was ready to get away for the destruction and start a new life. And that's exactly what it was, mate. I got off the train at Limpston Commando. Must have been 10 other recruits there. And then the corporal, the drill corporal, marched down. He's like, right, blah, blah, your names. And then marched us up. And I'm like, fucking hell, getting marched up to the foundation block. And the foundation block in the Royal Marines is where you get 60 recruits. And it's basically 2 weeks where they basically strip your identity, your civilian identity. And I mean, mate, as soon as you get there, you're getting marched over to the barbers. Your hair's getting straight off. And I had long hair at the time, mate, and I like doing my hairstyles and all that. So I get that off, then it's back over, and it's just things, mate, that you think everyday people should be doing. Like, there was a detail where the corporal would get in and all he does would be looking round him in the showers, and he's just telling you, right, this is how you wash yourself, lads. You wash your face, you wash under your armpits, he's standing there naked, you wash your arse crack into your balls, and everybody's just like that. He's like, but lads, I know this might seem a wee bit away out there, but you'd be surprised how many people get washed and they miss their face and miss their teeth. Everybody's like started laughing. And then once you get that foundation block, mate, it's just to basically strip you down and start building you up to be a Marine, as you can imagine, and install discipline, ethos, values, and become a soldier. But because I was doing all the fitness stuff, like with my mate was just doing RMR, I didn't actually know that you were to be a soldier. I thought just Marines were all fitness, mate. So the first time we came to do a bit of soldiering, and in the field, they gave us a weapon, a rifle, and a fucking Bergen, and I was like, what the fuck's happening here, man? We had to sleep under a poncho, and I was like, oh man, I don't know what I've let myself in for here. Don't know if this is for me, but I was like, do you know what? This is all I've got. I need to actually get through this training and basically become a Marine, and I'm going back to all that fucking destruction. But it's probably one of the best things I've done, mate, because it gave me the platform to rebuild my life, rebuild my confidence, rebuild my character. And in that the training's 9 months, but it's effectively about 12 months when you take into consideration like leave times at Easter, Christmas and that. It gave me 9 months just to find who I was, mate, and install the things like discipline, install values into me that I'd completely lost through gambling in the last few years. And the training itself, it was very, very hard, mate, as you can imagine. Things like just been, see, one of the hardest things, mate, seeing you're in the field and doing exercises and soldiering exercises, mate, so you've just been freezing cold, just constantly. There's a thing in the Marines that teach you is wet and dry. So basically you're out all day and you've got wet kit on because you're doing your soldiering. Then when you go to harbour up and get in your sleeping bag, you have to take your wet kit off, hold it up and put it in your rucksack and put your dry kit on so you can sleep. Then in the morning, you have to get up, take your dry kit off and put your wet stuff back on. When I was doing this, mate, it was like, I started in November and all through the training, it was like a winter training, and you were getting up to an exercise, mate, and your stuff was frozen and you're trying to put it on. And it was honestly one of the most horrible experiences ever. Just things like that, just try to break you down mentally and see who was capable and mentally tough enough to go through.
And our grandfathers of that generation had national service and stuff like that. Do you think that it would never happen? But do you think something like that could help? Because I feel like there's almost like a lost generation. Maybe I'm wrong when I'm looking back at younger people, but I feel like there's almost a lost generation, and you're seeing like children, teenagers suffering so heavily for depression. When we were younger, I don't really think that was too much of a thing. Do you think something like that could potentially help? Because you're learning all these, you're learning about yourself really, you're building up a toughness that most people wouldn't think you would have. Do you think that's something that would help if they had some sort of basic training for the younger generation doing some of that kind of national service type thing?
I think it would help in the sense if the younger ones wanted to go and do it, but see when somebody's completely against the idea of it and you're getting and you're forced, I think it goes against human nature. So I'd say it's a great idea because it did install a lot of good, it basically built me back up as a new character, but I needed that at the time. That's what I needed to get away from it. So it would be a good idea, but in that sense, as you said, I don't think it would work because people would be rebelling against it massively.
I would. It's not something that I don't think would ever happen, but I
Yeah.
also think that probably on a volunteer base, I think that something like that would be quite good for a younger generation to instill certain things, because you get a lot of people talking about if you do something, do one thing, make your bed every day, and start your day by making your bed.
Yeah.
And it's something I've actually been trying recently, where just get up and you make your bed and actually done one thing that day, and then you can build on it from there, which I imagine is heavily instilled in you in the Marines.
Heavily instilled. It's just things like, mate, as you say, is making your bed first thing in the morning, is starting to build that discipline and the good habits in your life just with your first task of the day, and that sets up that momentum. Things like taking pride in your appearance, as I was saying there, they were showing us how to get showered and how to iron our clothes and how to build our boots, and it's all things that if you do make your bed in the morning and take pride in your appearance when you leave the house, mate, you've got to feel good about yourself. And when you feel good about yourself, life feels good, doesn't it?
You get a lot of. Have you ever seen many of the TikTok videos we see that Steve Harvey?
All right, Steve Harvey, aye.
So he talks about the thing where it's like you wake up with negative thoughts. You have to start doing a gratitude list. And it's something I've seen you talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Do a gratitude list as soon as you wake up in the morning, and then the day starts better for you. But back onto the Marines, that environment, I imagine it's quite similar to being in a football dressing room, where you've all the lads there, you have a lot of fun, you're all in it together. What was your, how long were you in the Marines for?
I was in for 8 years.
8 years. So what was your kind of career in the Marines like?
So when I passed out as being a Marine, that was probably one of the proudest days, mate, just for everything I'd been through the last few years, the addiction and that. And then my first draft was up to 4-3 Commando, which was called Fleet Protection Group then. And it was a real eye-opener getting sent into a group of Marines, and you do an initiation called a joining run. So when we rocked up the first week, the corporal and that, right, lads, as you can imagine, you're called the sprogs then, the young ones, so you have to do everything. They sent us into the shops with a shopping list, all this stuff. Like, this is for your initiation. And we had an initiation night, and the things on the list are like eggs, 2-litre bottles of cider, peppers, chilies, all this kind of stuff. So I think there was like 10 of us, mate, had joined in the initiation, and we turned up to this night with all the stuff. It was fancy dress and that, and you had to have all your stuff lined out. And basically, as you can imagine, all the lads in the troop were there, and we had to do things like tape the cider to our hands and then drink it and put the chilies in and eat the eggs and all that. And it was just mayhem, mate. And it was just to create that bond and initiate you into the troop, which all the Marines had done then. So it's a brilliant experience, mate. It's one of the best experiences I've probably had in my life, that early stage of the Marines and joining 4-3 Commando, because I've done some really cool stuff. And I think that was probably to the detriment of my Royal Marines career later on, because I'd done such a good job there, was being part of Royal Marine boarding teams out in the Indian Ocean, catching pirates, not the Johnny Depp ones, but Somalian ones. And one of my very first operations, mate, was when Libya was going through all the Civil War stuff. We were on HMS, was it War Minister? Maybe War Minister. And we had tasked to go out to Libya, out of Benghazi, and basically cordon off a section of Benghazi harbour and start getting the British nationals out of Libya onto the boats and back to Cyprus. And I was shitting myself because the fucking harbour was hostile, and I was the first man off the fucking ship, man. I'm like, oh my God, man. I was like, oh, this is fucking, I hope nothing happens here, but it was fine. And we got off and cordoned off and put them back on. So that was my first job into Libya as a Marine.
One of the boys I worked with was in the Marines, and I'll tell you his name once we finish because you might know him.
Mm-hmm.
He told me about all that type of stuff, and I've never known a boy so obsessed with a naked bar. He talks about it all the time.
He's shouting it to you, is he?
Honestly, naked bar all the time. He talks about it. But see, like when you're the stuff about the Somali pirates, how I've got a slight experience with the work that I do, where I kind of understand being the first guy through the door or whatever. What's that like, getting into that environment? Because it's an environment, fortunately, that almost nobody will ever have to go into unless you're a soldier or whatever role you do. What is that environment like?
So for me, when you get into that environment, mate, it was the adrenaline's pumping. So you're like, and you've done all this training, beat up training first and foremost. So effectively, you want it to happen
Aye.
because you want that to see what it's all about and have that experience. Of, right, I've done all this training. It's built up to a point now. I'm actually got to go and get to do my job. And when you're there, it's just adrenaline kicks in, mate, because it's a situation where it's either fight or flight because it's effectively survival mode. Because in the back of my head, I'm like, I'm not sure something could kick off here, and then everything, hopefully, everything that you've trained for then kicks in. And one of the deployments we did as a boarding team on HMS, it was HMS Somerset for 6 months, and that was patrolling out in the Indian Ocean and basically catching pirates, was an Iranian dhow. It was got pirated from 4 Somalian pirates. But what happens, mate, is when the warship turns up, the Somalian pirates just go, fuck this, and just like put their hands up. We boarded that. There was 12 Iranians on it, 4 Somali pirates. And as you can imagine, mate, it was just 4 malnutrition guys, just like that, right, hands up. And we had to take them back across to the ship and get processed and then take them back to Somalia. And I was looking at these guys, I'm just like, these are just out here trying to put bread on the table for their families back home, mate. Do you know what I mean? So you start thinking about things later on, going, why are these guys out here doing this? And it's just survival as well.
I suppose it's like my only other thing with that is I've seen Captain Phillips. You know,
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
How are these guys, 4 malnourished guys, able to just go and take a boat?
It's a full operation, mate. So there's gangs back in Somalia who are all set up for this as their operations. Get out in little dhows and skiffs, and they're doing it every day. You know what I mean? Practicing it just to get up in the ships and that and pirate them. And all it is just to get money and ransoms for back there. Right. It's mad, aye.
So you've done 8 years in the Marines. Why did you decide to leave?
So that was, as I was saying there, that was, as you can imagine, how cool a job that was out in the Indian Ocean, mate. I did that for 3 or 4 years. And in the Marines, you get drafts. So my draft was up doing that counter-piracy stuff. And then I had to pick a specialisation, they call it. And I picked mortar troop. And
what's that?
So mortar troop's just like heavy weapons. So you become a support troop to ground. So for example, if like in Afghanistan, if you're mortar troop, you'll be behind, and you'll be a heavy weapons troop for the troops who are getting in and taking out compounds, and you'll have support fire for them. And I chose that, mate. And everything had finished then, so that was us coming out of Afghanistan, so it was quite a quiet time. It was only training exercises on camp, and there wasn't much going on, like to get stuck into. So it just became a wee bit stale, a wee bit boring, and I was like, right, it's time to start thinking about maybe going back out to, I was calling it the big bad world, because they were known before. I thought, right.
Is that how your mindset was?
That's how my mindset was in the Marines, mate, because all I known was destruction and everything I'd created for myself, and there wasn't much out there. And when you're in the military and in the Marines, mate, they kind of brainwash you. They say, like, this is the best thing you'll ever do, if you could imagine. And they try and put you off putting in they call it your chit and your notice to then leave. So I was like, right, is this for me? But I was like, do you know what? I'm coming up to 30 now. It's never. I'll end up being in here and getting up the rank structure or whatever it may be. And in that time, all my mates started to leave as well. So when you see your mates leaving and start to go do things, you start thinking, I want to go and leave as well. So I had done mortar troop, mate, for 4 years, and then I left and I became a personal trainer.
Was that pure gym? That where you started, or did you do a course before?
So in the last year of the Marines, you do a thing called resettlement, and they set you up with different courses. So whatever you want to go and train in. So mine was Marine. Some of my mates went and done fibre courses and that. So the last 6 months, I did an intensive personal training course. I think it was 8 weeks or something, and got the level 2, level 3 certificate. And in that time period, I was just looking for jobs around about Glasgow, and it was pure gym in Shawlands I started my career.
Before we talk about that, you said that you were still gambling throughout your time in the Marines. up until you're about 30. Is that when you stopped gambling? What was the process and how did you end up
So
ending your gambling?
so the process of my it was an ongoing struggle all through my 20s, mate. It was like, I'd say it was going through bouts and periods of heavy gambling, then coming off it. It wasn't as such as I was doing it every single day. There was just certain periods in my life through joining the Marines that I would hammer it. And I think because when I joined the Marines and I did such a good job there, my focus was on that. So I wasn't, and I was enjoying my life. I wasn't really gambling the first 3 or 4 years I came away from it. Then when I joined Motor Troop, it just took a hold of me. So I think that was maybe for about 25, mate. I started gambling again and going. And when because I was coming home to Glasgow much more every weekend, because I wasn't away of these places, mate, I would be going out every weekend and we would drink, drug, cocaine. This is when I'm in the Marines, mate, and gambling. And a lot of people don't realise, mate, the military has got a big culture of drugs as well. And it's a thing that should be highlighted as well, but it's a thing that a lot of boys need help with. It's the underlying things, maybe PTSD and that, and things that they've seen, and using it as coping mechanisms as well.
Do you think there's, I literally don't know, so do you think that part of the reason why like coke will be so prevalent, drugs and stuff in the drink, is looking for that high, that if you go on deployment somewhere, it could be large periods of, I know you're sitting about doing nothing a lot of time, but when you go, the adrenaline spikes so high. Do you think that that's at times is a replacement for some of the feelings?
I think for me, it was just fitting back in a society with your mates and they're doing it, and you're like, fuck it, I'm going to do it as well. I don't think it's to replace the high as such. I think it's just when boys get home, they're like, I'm fucking going to go on it and just forget about all the shit that maybe they've seen or whatever. I can't speak for any lads, but I think that it comes to that point where they're like, I'm just going to go on it at the weekends. And then when you're drinking, you make daft decisions when you're drinking, mate, and it usually leads to the drugs. And that was for me, mate. When I was coming home, I was drinking, taking drugs, got to the casino, and I was in the Marines, and then I was going back up to camp like that. I hope there's not a fucking drugs test, a compulsory drugs test popped up, which some did, and boys were getting their samples and that pissed in and that.
What would happen, like, if you got dating? Would you be out, or would
you would be out, mate?
Really?
Nah, you're gone. That's it. There's no. It's like a policy, mate. There's no. Or you could turn. I guess you could say I've got an addiction, and there would be a support system there to help you. But usually it's just gone.
So something that you touched on earlier, how you fell out with your mum and you were sleeping on your pal's couch. Obviously, we didn't go into how your relationship was with your mum, but was there a kind of rebuilding of the relationship with your mum through that period?
Aye, so there was. I think it was more so, mate, that I lived with my mum, and it was in that bubble, and she seen all the gambling that I was doing, all that kind of stuff, and I was just like, nobody could tell me anything then, mate. It was like, I'm doing it anyway, I'm addicted, you know what I mean? When you're a gambler, mate, you become a good liar. You don't have any integrity. So if you asked MD, mate, before, when I turned 30, maybe 31, I started talking about gambling, they would have been shocked. The only people that knew I was a gambler was like my mum, my closest family, and maybe some of my closest mates, mate. But everybody else wouldn't have been aware of that.
So you weren't at the stage where you were basically like completely no money. You just ruined everything. You weren't quite at that stage.
So if you're talking about the rock bottom and the turning point with the gambling, so I maybe had about, this is when I just started in pure gym, and I was starting to become build my personal training. I had about 3 or 4 grand sitting in cash, and I was like, right, I'm going to just go and bet, and this was maybe 30. And I went to the Valley Hills just up the road for me. I went in, I just played the roulette machine, mate, just batting the roulette machines, lost it all. I just walked back down the road, mate, went into my bedroom, staying with my mate at the time, we were sharing the flat. Just sat in my bed, and I was just like, I need to chuck this, man. It's either I'm going to fucking top myself, or it's time for change. And something just clicked in me then, mate. I don't know what it was. It was just a surreal moment where I was like, right, I want to live, I want to survive, I want to go and make something in my life, and now it's now or never, because I've left the Marines, I don't have that support, I don't have that roof over my head, I don't have the meals in my fucking stomach. It's either go and do some of your life and build your life, or you're just got to end up back at square one. And for me, lucky enough, I stayed with a very good mate who he was a gambler as well, so he knew kind of what I was going through, and he sorted me out just with accountability. Me and him at that time, he's like, right, this is what I done. I went and got a calendar, so he went and got us a calendar, and he's like, I'm putting that in the fridge, and every single day that you stop gambling, you got to cross it off. And on the first day, we went round all the bookies and that, and we just barred me for them. And that was the process, mate. And he's like, all you got to do is take the first 7 days and aim for the first 7 days and get it over and just cross the calendar off each night. And then you'll aim for 30 days, just cross the calendar. And then I got to 30 days. And then he's like, when you're at 30 days, we'll just aim for an hour month and just build momentum, mate. And that was it for there. And it's quite a good way, if you are coming off addiction, an effective way is having something there in front of you, just a calendar to cross off, mate.
Kind of visual representation.
Yeah.
How were the first 7 days for you?
Oh, they were torture, mate. It was withdrawals, because I was like,
did you physically feel it?
I physically felt it. I was like, I could go and gamble here. But then I was like, do you know what? I've barred myself for all these. I've got this calendar, just get through it. And it wasn't more so I wanted to gamble, mate. I just had an empty feeling, because I had nothing. I was like, what is this? Do you know what I mean? And when you're coming through the early stages, you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. You can't visualise where you've got to be in 6 months or where you've got to be in a year. It's really hard. And I think that's where most of the relapsing happens, because people don't see the vision in themselves actually coming through it, or making through 7 days, 30 days, or a month, or 3 months. But when you start building that wee bit of momentum and stop it, and then you start clawing your life back for what the destruction you've caused yourself, then that gives you that wee bit of momentum. But it's a continual battle.
How was that period? Obviously, you're really struggling, and you're saying you start to claw back your life. In what way do you notice that you're starting to claw back your life?
So things just started happening around about that time, mate. I couldn't explain what it was, but it was a crazy, surreal time. So when that happened and I started that turning point of there, I was doing the training in pure gym, and I'd started building the boot camp as well, the body fit camp. And one of my good mates, his wife, was training at the boot camp as well. And we'd finished the boot camp one Saturday morning, and I was driving back home, and I pulled out of the shops to get in and get water or something. And she pulled in behind me, and she's like, Stuart, I've got something to say to you. And I'm like, what's she saying? Gary's told me not to say this. He'll think you're off your head. She's jumped to it, and I'm like, right, what's up? Don't worry, what's up? She's like, are you all right? And I was like, just lying, saying, aye, I'm sound. She's like, well, I've got your dad here, and he's telling me everything's got to be all right. I just want to pass that message on to him. My dad passed away when I was 21, mate. So I'm like, fucking hell. She's like, right. And I was like, no worries, Amy, don't worry. And she's like, just to pass that message on to you. She jumped back into her motor, drove away. I'm just jumped out in the morning. I've just drove up the road, and you're just thinking, what just happened there? Do you know what I mean? It's quite a surreal thing, mate. For me, anyway, I was like, fucking hell, did she even know my dad passed up? Do you know what I mean? I was like, so I'm back up to my flatmate. I just sat on my couch, and I just sat there like, and the lassie I was seeing at the time, her brother had passed away from suicide a few years ago, and she was in with an organisation who had a lot of like mediums and help for this, and I could remember that, and I messaged her and told her, and she says, I'll get you in touch with this woman who's a medium, a psychic, and you can tell her what happened. And then I fucking messaged her, mate, and got on the phone to her, and she just started telling me all these things, like my uncle William. She started telling me about my mate's mum who'd passed away, Big Kate. She started telling me about all these things, and I'm just like, my dad, and I'm just like, what the fuck is going on here? I came off the phone, mate, and I just started crying, just for about 10 minutes, mate. It was just this emotional outburst, mate. It was like, people call it like a spiritual awakening, like everything's just starting to make sense and just fitting into your life. And then the sequence of events after that, mate, after that phone call and things she said to me, just all started fitting into place, and I'm just like, what's going on here? And ever since then, mate, I no gambled. I come off the alcohol, no.
So you completely off drink as well.
It's completely off the
So
drink.
how long have you been off both?
So the drink I came for that year, I've been off gambling since there, so that'll be about coming up in 6 years off the gambling. And the drink, I come off it for a full year. Then I went back on it for wee periods of time and that. The last 4 years, but now I'm completely off that and all.
What kind of difference do you think that's made on your life?
Massive difference, mate. I think things like alcohol, it's all to keep you trapped in your mind, keep you up here. And when you're clear head, mate, and you're no boozing, you're not causing yourself any self-destruction, it's it's a feeling where you're just like, every day's clear. Every day's you start seeing the world differently, mate. It's like the world's in 3D instead of walking about like a zombie, which I was. As I've said, mate, I felt possessed. I look back in my life and I go, since I was gambling and all that and doing all that stuff, I felt my spirit was possessed, mate, with a demonic fucking entity, because I knew deep down I shouldn't be doing any of these things. I felt it in me. My soul was going, don't do it. But I was getting possessed. I'm not saying there is something there possessing me, but I was not in control of my actions.
See, it's quite a few times you've kind of used that type of language where I don't imagine you're overly religious, but you're quite spiritual, I take it, with that stuff that you say.
So I would say, so I've been doing all the full path, making addiction of, as they say, what they call it now, as a spiritual awakening, spirituality. Whereas I feel now I've went a full circle where I've like, I wouldn't say I'm as spiritual as such now, because I think that's just another trap. Spiritual religion, we're all just getting trapped inside our heads to believe things. So I'm like, no, I'm like, I'm spiritual in a sense where I look inwards to myself, I look inwards to my soul as such, because I know that's what I've got, because it's been telling me all my life. I've been feeling things all my life where I've felt like, we've got a spirit, but that's easily possessed if you do start getting doing things like gambling, drugs, that obviously blocks your mind, mate. Does that make sense?
No, I understand what you're saying. Did you ever go to like Gamblers Anonymous or AA or anything like that, or was it just you did it yourself?
I was all through that, mate. I was never bold enough to go into a room and say I'm a gambler and amongst a group of people. So I never ever went down that route. It all started for the sequence of events. And everybody always asks me the turning point, and I say there's many ways to skin a cat in life, mate. If you go and do the GA or whatever it is, that'll work for people. It might not work for some people. You might have to do a different path and a different route.
You used the word bold there. Why do you think it's bold, or is it kind of bravery in a sense?
It's brave. It's brave. So that's exactly, mate. It's bravery. It's having that. That's exactly what it is, mate. It's bravery to go in and go, listen, I've been a good liar for all my life. Now got to be vulnerable to a group of people, which effectively, when you're gambling and you're drinking, mate, you're masking the insecurities and the pain and the trauma underneath, and it's basically leaving you vulnerable in it when you go in and be boat and you're being gone.
But I don't think you get much bolder than this, though, because obviously you're happy to talk about this stuff and you're being very open, particularly as the conversation's progressed. Whereas you go to GA or AA, where it's like, I've got a mate in GA, I've got somebody very close to me in AA who that's like-minded people who have been through the same stuff. So I take my hat off to you, the fact that you've been able to date without that, and then now you can come out and speak about it. You're very big, like I touched on with TikTok and Instagram, and I really enjoy your TikToks. Like the video I found for you will be the one that most people find, the 12 life lessons,
yeah,
which has got like 640,000 views on it. I checked last night. How were you able to put that? Because most of your videos that have done well have been like 12 life lessons, or 5 things you need to stop doing, or 6 things, or putting a number on it. And it's something I've really liked when I've been watching, where I think, again, maybe that self-doubt I have like that, where I want to grow my TikTok and Instagram, I'm like, I couldn't think of the things that you've thought of. do you put a lot of thought into what you clearly do? Do you put a lot of thought into like the 12 life lessons? I thought that was a great video, and it was a lot of it hit home with me. Um, so do you take a lot of time thinking about that stuff, or do you just get in front of the camera and say it and it comes to you?
No, so I write that, like the videos, I write them down,
Right.
and I write them down into wee sections. Then I go over them and I look at them, and I try and memorise what I've wrote down. Then I go over the video. So I always write that 12 voice lessons one. I wrote that down. I'm not the type of person who can just get up my camera and rattle something off. I've done it, but I need to be prepared to be on camera. I'm no natural, if that makes sense. I need to have things prepared.
So script it before you do it.
So I need to write them down just so I've got an idea of what I'm saying in my head. I never just went up and rattled that off. I sat and wrote it all down.
Because I thought it was brilliant. I really did think it was good, and I suppose you can, in a sense, you can tell it's scripted because you don't miss a beat. You get everything.
Everything was edited to make it obviously a perfect video for like the life lessons.
What kind of response did you get for that? Because that is 640,000 views. That's a lot of people.
It blew up my TikTok. It literally gained about 20,000 followers for it and counting, probably more. Just that one video.
People get in touch with you after a video like that
so I don't think I was massively prepared for the people who would get in touch, such as more so I done a video called The Internal Struggle, and that was talking about things like I've just been talking about here, gambling and addiction, etc. More people were getting in touch about that one for their addictions and stuff. The 12 life rules, more people were saying you've got that spot on, kind of sketchy, and then they followed me and being in my page. So they wouldn't get in touch in that sense. It would just be say I resonate with that.
Aye.
But the one that a lot of people were getting in touch and asking for help is I done the internal struggle one, and I was talking about my gambling addiction and how to overcome it. A lot of people were messaging asking about the turning point.
What kind of stuff do you tell these people when they message you?
So I just tell everybody the same thing, that this period in your life will pass. It's just having that little bit of direction, and the fact that people are reaching out to me, it shows that they've got strength and they want to change whatever their addiction is. And I always say to them, just take one day at a time, mate. Them that's struggling with addiction, as I always say, try the calendar method that I've just spoke, mate. It's so powerful and effective and so easy, just having that visual thing that you've got to cross a calendar off. And I did if MD is listening to this today and you're struggling with addiction, I set up a wee 2-week program for people called The Turning Point, where there's numbers there for GA, Cocaine Anonymous, Alcohol Anonymous, plus a wee 2-week plan where people have something to focus on while they get the required help, because it's not my job, addictions and stuff. So it's more just try to funnel people into that program to then go and reach out to the required help that would be able to support them.
See, something I wanted to talk to you, as soon as I saw the 12 life lessons and then I watched a bit more of your stuff, and it's something that I've been very fortunate. Generally, my mental health's pretty sound. I have lapses like everybody does. But men, particularly our age, why do you think that men our age have, the suicide rates for men is like ridiculously high comparable to women? Why do you think, particularly for our age and a bit younger and slightly older, that mental health is so prevalent with men?
I think for men, as what I've spoke about here, and saying that I've not felt good enough, mate, because I've not been a football player in my life. I think social media, society's expectations on men to be successful become someday, and that's where you get ultimately the respect. And if you don't become successful and you don't achieve things in their life, then they can see as a failure. And life's hard for a man, do you know what I mean? It's hard for a woman as well, but for young men to make way in life, mate, to obviously get a job and start getting on that ladder of providing for themselves, like getting a house, getting a car, it's no easy, mate, in this day and age. So many men are struggling through these factors, that they start looking at social media, they start looking at other men's lives, and you think about people like Andrew Tate now, who's a big advocate of men's mental health, but when he's effectively standing there in front of a fucking Lamborghini, all these
Aye.
nice women run about
Aye.
him, and you're say your wee Joe Blog's fucking 24, and you're like, this guy's telling this is what I need to aim to be, and it's unachievable, mate.
I think that with Andrew Tate, that you get a lot of, particularly women, who are very against what he says, and I think the general message that he tries to put out is probably good for men, but the image that he portrays is, I never want to be Andrew Tate. I don't want his life. I don't want a Lamborghini. It'd be nice to have that kind of money, but I don't want that life. But I think he says enough things that resonate with particularly young men that makes them listen to him. I think some of what he says is an act as well. I don't believe that he believes in everything he says. But like you get stuff, like the Red Pill movement, you heard some of that stuff.
Yeah.
I think that you get a lot of disenfranchised young men who they use that as a way to push their issues on, like to women in general with the Red Pill movement, where they'll blame women for certain things and they say women have it easier, and women have certain things easier than men, but men have certain things easier than women as well. It's kind of, we have unique issues, but I think that so many young men are disenfranchised now, and like you said, social media portrays certain things. I mean, you look at Dan Bilzerian, who has millions of followers, that men will look and say, "Oh, we're supposed to have that life," when that he's 0.0001% of the world, that you can't achieve that. And I think it is quite difficult for men, particularly young men, to, when you see all that stuff and think that I should be doing this, when it is, like you said, that's not really realistic for almost anybody.
100%, mate. And I think this is the problem in society, is information and social media, comparing our lives to other people, and it's probably causing the most issues with mental health, depression, whatever it may be. And I think the best thing to do is switch off to it and just focus on yourself. And that's the big message, obviously, Andrew Tate saying for young men: focus on yourself, get your body right, get your money right, everything else will take care of itself, which effectively is a great message. But as you're saying, it's some of the stuff that he's saying, the Red Pill movement, how people are mentored. And that's probably why society is so fucked up, mate, because you've got this Red Pill movement teaching guys that women are fucking bad influences or whatever, or if you settle down with a woman, she's got to take your life away, or women are listening that. So I think that's the problem, mate, is there's so much information online that everybody's confused, or everybody's believing something, and then effectively, fundamentally, they should just be believing in themselves and start to work on their self.
I think part of the issue as well, you've spoken about it with the social media, just, or even your phone, just getting rid of your phone. I think that that's something that I'm addicted to, is my phone, and I really don't like my children will talk to me at times, and I'm half listening to them, and that's something that's going to stick with them, where they'll see their dad sitting on their phone all the time, and I'm not giving them enough attention at times as I should, because, well, I'm just on my phone, and I don't mean it to be that way, but it's something you're addicted to, and I would like to be able to do that. Where something I should probably try is put my phone away, but I feel like people look for instant gratification, so that's why you go into Instagram to see if, when you put a new post on, you have to go on all the time to check to see if you've got likes, or if you put a video on TikTok to make sure that people have been watching, because it's instant gratification. And I think that's part of society's problem just now as well, that you need delayed gratification and build up your self-worth, instead of having, I need this social media to tell me that I'm good enough. And I think that's, what's your view on that?
I think everybody in this world is out there searching for answers in the external world through social media, mate. And social media, the app TikTok, is all set up to keep you on that app and keep you scrolling. And it's all giving you that dopamine hit. And that is like, right, what fucking video's got to grab my attention? And you'll be thinking that yourself, and you're flicking through it, you'll go, fuck that, fuck that, boom, and somebody grabs your attention, and that's what draws you in. And I think that's the problem, mate. We're all looking for answers for our problems and our issues and what's happened to us in an external world that's set up to keep you trapped in that evolving cycle of information. Like I've said to myself, my journey through it all is being well, since you go back to school days, where we're getting programmed and indoctrinated into a system, belief system through religion, getting taught about here and obviously Scotland, Jesus and all that, and you believe in all that, and then you start outgrowing that, and you go out, and then you don't believe in anything, then you get addicted to the system, waking out every weekend, drinking drugs, then you get addicted to the gambling or whatever it is, then you get down the whole spiritual route, and then you're always believing in something. You're always consistently searching for information and answers to an external world, when the answer is switch off to it. For me personally, because you need to take time to switch off everything and start looking within yourself for answers and start feeling, as a lot of said about, is your soul, mate, your intuition, your gut feeling, something that many people do not listen to. And it's giving you the answers, mate. Your gut feeling tells you everything, for relationships with people, how things feel, how situations feel. You even feel in here when we sit in the podcast, your intuition will tell you how, if you're feeling relaxed or you're feeling a wee bit nervous. So I think that's the for me, mate, over the last wee period of time, is just try to switch off and no search for information or answers in an external world, and just be who you are and try and get back to that place where you were growing up as a young child, authentic. And I always say this to people, very, very easy, mate, to find the answers to yourself. And how I'd find answers to myself is sit down one day with a notebook, write down all the things you did as a kid that you enjoyed doing. For myself, playing football, on my bike, over the school, with a golf club, hitting the golf balls. And then look at that list, and then look at your life now. If you get any of that stuff incorporated into your life now?
No, not really, no.
And then if you've not, then that could potentially answer a lot of questions that you want answered, like why you're feeling the way you feel, why maybe you're feeling a wee bit depressed, because all the things you've done as a kid, you were authentic, that's who you were, that's what you enjoyed. But the system and everything you've grew into today has got you so far away from that, like working a 9-to-5 job, out boozing every fucking weekend. And then that obviously causes all the problems. And then people start going down, right, when they change that, they start going down that route, that spiritual route of meditating. When the fuck did you start meditating as a kid? It's I can't meditate. So I go, I can't sit in a room for 10 minutes. My full thing with meditation is playing my golf, playing my football, keep me active, getting out into nature, doing the cold water, and all these things as I done as a kid, mate. And it's very, very simple for people to go, aye, I'm so far away from my authentic little kid who never did a care in the world. And if you incorporate all that stuff into your life, things will get better.
No, I think it's quite a simplistic view as well, and but I suppose things are generally quite simple. We complicate them ourselves, and I suppose you look at mental health being more prevalent now, but I suppose the social media world we live in, where 35, 40 years ago didn't have phones, you basically knew what was happening in your world, and that was what you focused on. And obviously you still had people that had poor mental health then, but it was probably limited. Something you touched on that I wanted to talk about, and I'm glad you said it because I'd completely forgotten, was the cold water therapy stuff.
Yeah.
I've got a mate who's got a big barrel at the backyard and he loves it as well. What benefits do you feel for doing the cold water therapy? Because I've tried a couple of times the turning the shower to freezing cold before I go out in the morning. What kind of benefits do you feel for it?
So it's quite a journey with the cold water there the last 5 years. So effectively, we've all been doing cold water through our lives. We've all known about cold water stuff, whether you get a bump in the ankle and you put ice on it and it's cold, or you get in the cold lakes or whatever, in the showers if you're playing football, the ice baths and that. And I never really paid attention to that when I was playing football. Why? I just knew it was for recovery. But when I left the Marines, mate, I joined a group called Spartans, and it was first basically as veterans and that with PTSD. And in this Facebook group, mate, there was one of the guys that I think he was in the army, but his addiction was alcoholism, and he was going through a divorce and that. And in the group, he kept uploading videos of him and streams and all this, and he's like, right lads, I'm feeling fucking brilliant, man. You need to go into this guy, this was 5 years ago, you need to go to this guy Wim Hof, the breath techniques, get yourself. And I'm sitting there going, the fuck's he on, man? He's only getting in cold water. So he kept putting them up. I was like, right, let's research this guy called Wim Hof. And obviously everybody will know who Wim Hof is. He's brought the whole cold water thing mainstream. So I started getting immersed in the cold water therapy, mate, and to be honest, the benefits, everybody asks me, like you asked me today, what are the benefits? I always say to people, go and find out what the benefits are for yourself. And it's a great way to do it, because then you realise, what maybe have I been missing out on for all these years, such as the mental side of it, mate. Unbelievable. Just if you're, I always say, if you're suffering with depression, anxiety, incorporating a wee bit of cold water therapy, mate, it soon clears that up. So it does, just through the sense that the things that are happening in your body, so it's an unnatural thing for us to do to get into cold. So your body's basically getting into survival mode, they say, fight or flight. And when you're doing that, it's releasing a wee bit of adrenaline into your body, wee bit of dopamine, these endorphins, so these happy hormones are flying about the body. So you can see how that's got to have an impact if you are feeling a wee bit down or whatever it is. And for me, that's the biggest benefit. I do it pretty much every morning, either a nice barrel or a cold shower, mate, just for the mental benefits, just to keep myself sharp, focused and feeling good.
It's something that I have been meaning to try, and I think it's something I will do. Before we finish up, move on to your podcast, Live and Kicking podcast. You've had 3 episodes by this point. Well, by the time this comes out, you might be on about 4 or 5 episodes. But I've enjoyed your first couple that you've done, and it's been a lot of this kind of deeper type talking with men. What made you start it, and how are you enjoying doing it?
What made me start it, mate, is I was wanting to get outside my comfort zone, because I've been doing social media, doing the little short videos on my phone. As I was wanting to start getting into more longer form content, sitting down with people, chatting to people who, for all different backgrounds, who have got good, inspiring, motivational stories, and then bring them out and show people that there's people just like you who are there, who are willing to share their story and help people. So for me, mate, it was to get myself out my comfort zone and get other people out their comfort zone as well, and start sharing their story, because I know how hard it is, but I know how beneficial sharing your story is, mate. For me, since I've started sharing mine, probably over the last 3 years, it's been a massive healer for me. It's healed a lot of wounds, just being able to sit and talk about this stuff. So I was thinking down the route, the Live and Kicking podcast, there's many stories like mine, but there's many other amazing stories out there that I was wanting to get people on and start helping others as well.
How are you enjoying it?
I am enjoying it, mate. It's like I said, this is actually my first podcast sitting down with somebody like yourself, me on the other end. So I'm like, it's been a wee bit nervous as well. So I'm enjoying it, mate, because I'm learning as well. I'm learning for the experience. And I look forward to the future and what holds for it.
So what is next for you? Where's your goals or your aims? Is there anything that you're targeting in the next while?
So my goals and my aims is just to keep looking from within, mate, and not get too bogged down in what will be in the future. And what I mean by that is just for everything feels right in life, go with it. For me, I've got to a stage as I've been around that full circle, chasing goals, chasing money, chasing the gambling, being a football player. Everything I'm doing now is just about how it feels, like the podcast, running my boot camp. I'm just going with the flow and letting things feel, mate. If it feels right for me, I'm going for it, and I'm going to see what path that takes me in my life. And that's what I would, before we finish up, if I could give MD any advice, is switch off for a while and just listen to your gut and just see where things take you in life, see if it feels right for you. Don't actually set things up for yourself, just go, does this feel right for me, and then go for it, because your intuition, your gut and your soul, it's giving you everything you need, mate.
That's 100% going to be a TikTok video for that. That's a great place to finish. Stuart, I really appreciate you coming on, mate. I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, so thanks for that, mate.
Thanks, mate.
And thanks for watching and listening to this. If you could like this episode and subscribe to the channel, it would mean a lot to me. Thanks again. Cheers.